Good afternoon, Britanny Jackson. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Outstanding. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah. So, Lending with Purpose, thank you for joining us today. These are conversations, Britanny, that we have with clients like yourself and friends like yourself, and introductions to various forms of information and professionals like yourself. Resources that we use, like your resources, that we look for that we never knew existed or wanted to learn more about. And this is Lending with Purpose. So what I'll do is I'll get started with a quick story. And thanks for reminding me, because I was struggling this whole time. I've been thinking about what story I wanted to tell, or what kind of did you know, or how to. And I was thinking about my did you know was going to be, did you know that I did like club promotions in college and party promotions. So I was somewhat of an event planner.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So those were good times. A lot of it I like to forget and vanish from my memory. No, I'm just kidding. We had some great time. I met some amazing people during those time frames. But you reminded me today, and the way you said it so eloquently. You should just tell the story about how you messed up my mortgage. And so
it's a true story.
Yeah, it is definitely a true story. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, at first when you said that, I was like, man, I ain't messed your mortgage up. And then I was like, I actually did. So I remember we were helping you, and you were doing a first time home buyer program. This was, what was it, 2015 or so?
2014.
And so I remember calling you up, and I was so excited, like we had gotten it all done. And I think we had gotten it all done all early and everything. And it was just like, I was beating my chest and I was so happy. And you were like, Shawn, I don't, you were asking questions. You didn't understand something on there. And I was like, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'll take a look at it. And then I was, I told you, I remember where I was. I was in Rockville. I was getting ready to go into a lunch appointment. And then something told me, thank God for the smartphones and stuff. And so and at the time, something told me to just go into your email, look at the document to see exactly what it is. So I looked at the document, and there was no PMI on there, no mortgage insurance.
Yeah.
And so basically, ladies and gentlemen, and obviously Britanny knows this, and it worked in her advantage in a big way. If you don't put down 20%, initially when you purchase a home for a mortgage, you have to have a PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, and that protects the lender, right? And that's a monthly fee. The way we had set it up for her, it was going to be monthly. You could pay one time, or you can like increase your rate and buy it out altogether. So in Britanny's case, we were supposed to be charging her monthly for it. By the time the final documents came out, that fee was not even on there at all whatsoever. And so guess who had to make the executive decision to say, hey, listen, we messed up. I don't even think it was an executive decision. It was something that we had to honor because we didn't disclose it properly to her. And so she made out, because I think your payment ended up being about $150 less a month than what it was really supposed to be.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, our relationship really flourished after that.
Best lender ever.
Yeah. So don't come to me thinking that I'm gonna mess up, and
the next time,
and everybody's gonna get a come up on the next one. I'm going through your stuff with a fine-tooth comb, Britanny. I promise you. But ladies and gentlemen, I have Ms. Britanny Jackson here. You're going to do a much better job introducing yourself than I. I'm working on that whole introduction thing where I get everybody all excited and jumping out of their seats for people, but you're gonna do better than I. So just tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Okay, my name is Britanny Jackson. I am the founder of Ace Events Productions. I plan global and domestic corporate events. So anything from trade shows to trainings to board meetings. I've even done festivals, just run all of it, all things events. And I'm also a dance instructor.
Yes.
So event planner by day, dance teacher by night.
Got it. I was gonna get on you too. I was gonna do a little coaching on this thing here because I'm like, I asked you who you are and what you do, and I was like, if you didn't say dance instructor, I was going to
Yes,
talk.
that's a very big part of who I am.
Yeah, and I think we should actually talk about that, right? Because
Yeah.
we're gonna get into the events piece because everybody's here, and then the $1 million question is kind of what it's gonna look like in the future, and so we'll talk about that. I know it might be difficult, very difficult for you to answer that question with any certainty, but based on your professional experience, we can talk about it. But like, tell us about that pivot because that's events too as well. Um, and what you went through as a dance instructor trying to get because you work with what age groups are you working with you do like ballet and tap and hip
So
hop dance?
I teach tap,
Okay.
but the kids do everything. My youngest are 5, and my oldest are 18. So I have from first grade or kindergarten to seniors in high school. Lots of personalities and attitudes and all the things.
So how did you see those personalities and attitudes virtually? Like what was
You
that
know,
like?
it was difficult. Teaching doing anything online, that you used to do in person takes, it takes some time to get used to. But trying to teach tap virtually, that was something that I'm still getting used to. I don't when you're having conversations like this or when we're having meetings on Zoom, I don't think we're not as aware of how there's a delay like in real life from me getting what I'm saying to getting to you. So when I'm teaching dance, right, and I'm playing music and I am dancing to the music, the kids are getting it in a different way. They're not, so I'm offbeat to them, they're offbeat to me. It is a challenge, especially when you have a big class. So, I've had to figure out workarounds on that. And it has been challenging, but we figured it out. The kids do not like virtual dance class. None of my students are a fan of it. They want to be in Miss Brittany's face all the time. And I prefer that too. I like to have them in the classroom. It's hard to give corrections, when I can't see you fully, I can't see your body. Sometimes I need to actually reposition you, touch you to do it. So it's been a transition, but we figured it out. We had a really good season last year, went to competition and still won a ton of awards, even through having to do a lot of virtual coaching. So my kids have been great, very resilient, still working very hard, given the circumstances. So I'm very happy.
How has working with the kids or dance so how has dance or your event planning experience, vice versa, whichever one came first, um, uh, fed into what you do with the kids, like in regards to dance. Like, how does that experience work for you? Like, how's it related to the business that you do, or vice versa, the business that you do? How does that relate to dance? That makes
Well,
sense.
in 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 teaching and I mean, so aside from the teaching part, I'm a competitive dance instructor. So my kids compete all
Yeah,
over the US. So there's obviously a big planning piece in that in terms of coordinating travel with the kids, coordinating rehearsals, um, like we do competitions out of state, we compete nationally, like I said. So that, all of that is still part of, being an event planner, making sure everyone is arriving in time, making sure everyone is 2 hours ahead of their stage time, dressed and with makeup on 2 hours. This is the thing that event planning has helped me with. You have to give very clear instructions to people. Leave nothing Don't leave anything for people to assume, to guess. Lay everything out all the way. I need your child here 2 hours ahead of time with makeup on, stage ready. Don't show up 2 hours before and tell me you still have to do her hair and the makeup. She has to come ready. So just little things like that. Like, you may not think that you have to say, like, planning events has taught me you need to lay out every single thing that you want people to do.
yeah. Treat everyone like a 2-year-old, like like they know nothing, right?
Yeah, and people may say it's overkill with the information and the emails and it's, an overload, but I feel like the more I can share, the better, because now at least it's there. Can't say
Right,
I didn't tell you.
right.
You may not have read it though, but you can't say I didn't tell you.
I'm not even gonna lie. Like when I was getting you all scheduled and everything, I was thinking to myself, like, man, Shawn, like, just do this right, because she already is like on a daily basis is dealing with the projects and planning of these things. And so give her as much information as possible. And then I was out of the office, and then you had sent me an email to kind of follow up, and I was like, hey, she beat me to it. I swear I was gonna hit her with a message today, like my final message. And then I came in and I sent you that video to explain, like, how everything was gonna go this
Which was
week and
great.
things like that. Was that great? Did
It
that
was
work?
great. Yep.
Did I pass the test?
You did. You
All right.
provided very great instructions. It was very easy to follow. I knew exactly how to get in, what time I needed to be in, what I needed to do. You did a great job.
All right, thank you for that. And so this leads me to the point in which, why you're here. So I LinkedIn's an amazing platform. I go on record saying that, and I'll say it all the time. And this is where we're speaking right now. So I saw that you had posted something about Ace Events Productions, and I think it said you were the owner or president or something like that. But I knew immediately when I saw that you started a business and you own the company. So I'm like, you know what? This is amazing. I need to reach out to Brittany. It's just a perfect opportunity for me to reach out to her, to catch up, to see how things are going, and to also give you your flowers, because I know you've been doing this at a very high level. And I could only imagine how difficult it's been over the past, 20 months or so or at least at the beginning of the pandemic, to weave through this. And for you to come out the way that you have with, starting a company, and also, thriving and flourishing, because I know you are. Um, I was just like, this is so exciting. And then we started talking more, and I'm like, well, Brittany, I do this live stream. I think people need to find out more about, what you do and how you do it. Would you mind coming on? And so you agreed. So tell us about Ace Events Production. Like, how'd that all come about? How'd that start?
2020. I mean, COVID. Honestly, I always am careful when I say this, but I know 2020 was a very difficult year for a lot of people, and it was definitely difficult for me as well. But it was also like a game changing year for me. Um, I was working full time in 2020 as a global event director for a company. And then when COVID hit, I was initially furloughed at, at first when COVID happened, because, we didn't know, no one knew how long this was really going to last. So it was like, oh, we'll just furlough you and then we'll bring you back, when things pick back up again. And then I was ended up being officially laid off shortly after that, because we did mostly in-person events and they just weren't happening. So I was laid off for about 6 months. And while I was laid off, I started to do contract work um, while I was laid off. So I had someone reach out to me and like, hey, would you mind doing this event? And I'd heard you're laid off, could you do this event? And I was like, oh, wait, like maybe this can be a thing, like outside of COVID. Maybe this can be what I do from now on. But I wasn't ready to take like the jump quite yet. I ended up going back to my job full time, but I was still doing contract work on the side. So I was working full time as a planner, and then also part time as a planner, and then still part time as a dance teacher. Um, and it just ended up being a lot and too much for me to handle, because I'm only one person. And I realized how much I enjoyed the diversity of the clients that I was getting as a contractor. And just the organizations that I was working with had such great missions, and it felt good to be planning events that had missions that I could have some type of connection to. It just gives you, when you resonate with the purpose behind the conference you're planning, it's just different. It's just a different experience. And so I just decided to take a leap of faith and just really lean into the opportunities that I had been given as a contractor, and decided to officially start my business, Ace Events Productions, and I have been rocking and rolling ever since. Yeah, just busy, busy, busy ever since. So I'm grateful for how it all has played out, and how the business is continuing to grow. And yeah, feeling like I made the right decision there. It was scary though. It was definitely scary. The day after my last day of work, when I woke up on September 1st, because August 31st was my last day, I was like, WTF? Like, why did you just quit your job? Like, are you really banking on yourself from now on to pay this mortgage that Shawn messed up.
Well, you could thank me for that. Actually, that so I'm the claim to fame as I'm taking credit for it all because you knew you had some disposable income because I messed up.
So yeah, so that's how Ace Events came to be. It was I was laid off and started doing contract work, and then really built up a nice client base enough that I was able to, walk away from my full-time job and, do it on my own terms.
That's awesome. I talk about purpose a lot. Well, lending with purpose, obviously, right? And so you hit the nail on the head. Like when it's something that you really believe in and it resonates with your why and the reason why you do it, um, more often than not, you're going to succeed or at least accomplish that target or goal.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big piece of it for you. And then tell me about I know what you meant when you said diversity in clients, but like did you create like a niche for like, hey, I'm gonna do this specialized thing, or was it the actual um access to different types of events and different types of clients and such that attracted you to really expand your business or to I don't know, I would say engage with someone? Like what does that mean like in regards to the diversity of clients? And then number one, and then number two, is do you have a specific niche that you work?
So as it relates to the client, so when I was working for other organizations, we always had like a specific focus. Like the first company I worked for, we were government. It was government events. Then the second company I worked for, it was associations. And then the third company, it was pharmaceutical. So although between those three industries, there was a lot of diversity there in terms of the types of events I was doing. But when I'm speaking diversity, I mean like my actual clients. Like I mean working with people of color, which is, as the client, as my client. That's something that I had never had. I never had any people of color as clients, organizations that were run by people of color, or having my leads be people of color. So it's just, that was something that I really wanted to do more, work with, have more diverse clients, work with organizations that worked for people of color, that had mission statements that were, to advance people of color. And this just gave me the opportunity to say yes to things like that. And of course, you do one well, and then that opens the door for another one. I got to work on, and this is the only name drop I'm going to do. I got to work on the Power Networking Conference with an incredible man named Dr. George Frazier.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was life changing to meet him and to work with him. It has opened so many doors for me. And for people who are not familiar with that, the Power Networking Conference is just all about Black entrepreneurship and networking and growing the Black entrepreneurs. And it was an incredible event to produce. And it was incredible to meet. I mean, all the speakers, African American men and women, the whole team that I was planning with on the Fraser Net side, Black men and women. It was just incredible. I had never done anything like that. And so it just made me it really showed me that those are the type of things that I want to continue to do as I move forward, as a Black woman in my career. A while ago, I had made a post on LinkedIn about how my whole career I was the only Black person in my department my whole life, like all of my whole time working. Had never worked in an organization that had a Black person in the C-suite. Had never reported to a Black person. So, for me, it became very important for me to start working with and trying to find ways to engage, with more Black professionals, and producing events that had missions that supported, Black people.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying. So tell me what it looks like though. So like, let's just use for an example the event that you just mentioned. What's that look like from start to finish, like in your role?
So we start out just with the client, letting me know what their overall goal is for the event, what they're trying to accomplish with their event. And then we, work through how to make that happen. I always ask clients, like, picture perfect, like take budget out of it. What is your picture perfect version of this event? if you could do all things, no limitations, what do you want to do? And that helps me get a very clear view of what they're trying to do. And so then once we add in things like, budget limitations and things that we have to, parameters that we have to work within, if I know that this is what's really important to you, I can figure out how to make that happen, for you. In a way that's cost effective and not going to break the budget. Obviously we can't do all the things all the time because, this is real life, and and there are limitations and things do cost money. But that's how I always start with, what is the end goal here, and what does the perfect program look like for you?
Got
And
it.
then
And
we
how,
walk through how to execute that. No, and then we just walk through piece by piece how we're going to create strategies to execute the overall goals.
and how much do your relationships and being like the resourcefulness play into all of this? Like, how does that play into it?
Well, it varies because clients a lot of times have people who own portions of their event. So like you as like speakers, for example, a lot of clients already know who they want to be speakers for their program because the organization is an expert on their topic or whatever they're hosting, whatever they're creating an event around. So they would have their speakers already, and a lot of times they have their content, so they know what their sessions are going to be, what their sessions are going to be about. I more so ask, so in this session, do we want this to be an interactive session? Are we doing Q&A, or is this I'm just listening to a speaker? In this virtual setting that we're in now, do we want attendees to be able to be seen on camera? Or is this just we only want to see the speaker? Do we want people to be able to ask questions live, or do we only want them to enter them through the chat? So in the virtual setting, you kind of got to play with, really figure out what they want the session to look like in a virtual space. But sorry, back to your other question. So I provide things like resources in terms of like the AV company that you need to produce your event. If you need a website produced for your event, an event platform to use for that, I'll make recommendations for which streaming platform we should use. If Zoom is acceptable for the meeting, or if we need to do something a little more advanced than Zoom. If you need more bells and whistles than Zoom can offer. Are we doing leaderboards? Like, do you want to play games? Are we doing networking? These are the type of things that I can help. Once I know what the client's overall goal is, I can help make recommendations for what vendors they need to use to bring their full vision to life. Are you
And
sending
how,
people swag bags? Like, are you
yeah.
sending something that people can have in their hands in conjunction with them attending the event virtually? And if they do that, this is the vendor we can use to do that. If they want to do entertainment, what kind of, you want to do a cooking demo, then I'll source out people to bring in. So it all starts with me getting a clear idea of what they want the event to look like. And then I can make recommendations for how to source out everything from there.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great information. I'm here writing all kinds of notes here. Thank you for a lot of good nuggets and great information. Like, the picture perfect piece, that was very important. We do that with mortgages too as well. You remember we sat down, hey, listen, what does it look like for you? Have you thought of a budget? Like, not like, because affordability is important, not
Right.
what you qualify for. And you were prepared for that anyway. But it's like, all right, tell me what it looks like ideally, but also worst case scenario for you. Like, this is my max. I'm not going a penny more. And then what we can do is tell you what it looks like in regards to
Yeah.
purchase, and give you a window to shop in. And so I think that's great that you lead with that, because it allows you to work together, right, with the
Right.
client to pull this amazing event together. So the one thing that, one of the things that I was writing down, you mentioned virtual a couple of times. I think everybody in the world knows that for a long time we weren't having any in-person events. And we had to shift and do a lot of stuff virtually. Like, I had a champagne toast last year for virtually, and we did that, and we delivered the bottles and the boxes and stuff, and we actually did a Zoom call, and we
Yeah.
did a speech, and I cried on there, and all all kinds of stuff, and it turned out great. But like, how long have you let me ask you this: how how much time did you have to put into preparing to be good at doing virtual events? Because it wasn't something that everybody had been doing before. And so I'm sure, was there a big learning curve, or was it kind of like you hit the ground running?
Oh no. So it was definitely a big learning curve, but it was like you were figuring it out as you went. Because it
Okay.
had to happen, because it had to happen. So I definitely learned prior to 2020, I had not done I had not done virtual events, like what I would call a virtual event. Like, of course, people would do things on Zoom, but we weren't really calling them like trainings and webinars and things on Zoom. But I wouldn't consider those like events. When I say events, like a 3-day conference, I've never done anything like that in a virtual setting, or even hybrid, which is something we could talk about in a second. This was all completely new to me. So really thinking through and having to think through all the pieces of a virtual event and what it looks like to the client, like I'm to the attendees, I'm literally like, what are they going to see on the screen at this second? And before we go into this next session, what needs to come up on the screen? So that role of event producer and creating a run of show that shows like this comes on the screen at this time and this comes on the screen at this time, then we got to go to this, that was completely new to me. I will say I feel like I picked it up pretty quickly, but that was a huge shift for me. I had no virtual event experience, and been, um, since I have started my business, everything that I have done has had a virtual component. If not fully virtual, it's been hybrid or fully virtual.
Tell us about hybrid, since because you mentioned it a couple of times. So I think we're progressing, because we had the virtual piece, then we went hybrid, and I think some people are doing, were doing in person up until recently, right? And then we'll wrap up by talking about what it looks like in the future. Let's talk about hybrid.
So a hybrid event is just when it's in person and a virtual component. My last event that I did in November was a hybrid event in DC. So I think hybrids work well, depending on like if you're in the DC area, you have a good bulk of your attendees locally who feel comfortable with meeting, and it's a small group. I think it really works well. There are some nuances with hybrid, and I don't know if nuances is the right word. There are just some things to think about when you're planning a hybrid program, because you don't want to take away from the experience on either side. So if I am a virtual attendee, you don't want your virtual attendees to feel slighted or left out of anything because they aren't there in person. So how do you make that happen? Like when you have a speaker, let's say you have a keynote speaker, or maybe a workshop, let's say a workshop, and in person people have the opportunity to ask questions in person. How are you creating a program that allows your virtual attendees to be able to engage with the speakers, have the same type of engagement with your in-person speakers? Because a lot of times I feel like in the beginning when people think of virtual, they're just sharing information with the person who was attending virtually. But then you have to think about, well, how can they engage and have the same experience as someone who is attending in person? And that requires, more AV setup. That requires more work, because we have to make sure that the experience is a two-way experience in a truly hybrid environment. That the people who are attending virtually can ask questions the same way someone who in person is asking them. So that's been the most difficult part, I think, in the hybrid piece, is just making sure that no one is slighted in their experience, and that you're not taking away from the in-person experience by being so focused on making sure the virtual attendees are being included the same way. So I think that has been the most challenging part about the hybrid. But I think it works well because everyone has different comfort levels right now. With COVID, I think it works really well, and I think it works well if you have people who need to attend who are just not near you. If you have a solid local base, then of course, let's go ahead and bring them in person, and then allow everyone else to attend virtually. It allows you to expand your reach, of course. I
Right.
think that's the big thing with virtual events as a whole, is that it allows your reach to be so much bigger. I know, again, just going back to the Power Networking Conference, their reach for 2020 2021 was so much bigger than their in-person reach, because now people in Africa are online watching them. People out of the internationally are able to tune in and watch. So I think that's a huge plus with the virtual and the hybrid events. The convenience of being able to expand your reach. But of course, the con is you lose the serendipity of in-person interaction. There's no running into somebody in the hallway
Right.
or bumping into an old friend at the networking reception, and just having those like genuine, natural moments that you have at in-person events. That obviously you can't replicate something like that in a virtual experience. But there are things that have been done that have that make them work. That make it all work. So I think the industry has been great at learning how to accommodate the needs of the clients, and trying to replicate the in-person experience as much as possible.
So we'll get into the next thing, but real quick, how do you know if your hybrid event was successful? Like, are you sending surveys out? Like, how do you know what works and what doesn't work, and what you might want to do to help your clients in the future?
Oh yeah, all events get surveys. Virtual, live, in person, everybody is getting a survey. We need feedback on all the things. Um, and yeah, so the surveys are actually what have helped shape me in helping clients plan events, like, and being an attendee myself at these events has helped me as well. Because as a planner, I rarely attended any in-person events. It's terrible, but I rarely attended things as an attendee. But because of the convenience of being able to attend things virtually, because I could do it from home, I attended a lot more virtual events. And so there were some that I thought were great. And there were some where I'm like, oh, that was clunky for me as an attendee. Let me make sure I advise clients not to do this. Or there were times where I attended conferences virtually, and as an attendee, just felt completely left out. Like the virtual attendees weren't thought about in this, and that's how I help shape, my clients' agendas and plans moving forward. That's why knowing what the overall end goal is and what picture perfect looks like is so helpful.
Wow, that's great. That's so many nuggets. You're giving away too much information. No,
Oh,
I'm just kidding. Not only 1% of people will implement this stuff anyway, so don't worry about it. Keep talking. This is great. Thanks for that. So then what happened, right, is we tried to go in person. I remember there was an event I was actually going to go to. We've been very cautious in my household, so I haven't been to any larger in-person events, but there was one that I was really considering going to. And Brittany, it was cool. They had wristbands, right? So they had like it was a green wristband, and that meant like whatever, anything goes. Like, you can hug me, we can talk, there's
mhm.
shake hands, no issues. There was like one that was yellow, and it was like caution, like I want my uh we do fist bumps, I think it was, or something like
Mhm, mhm.
that. And then there was a red band, which I probably would have worn. And that was like, give me my like 6 feet,
Yeah,
like I'm social distancing high, we no
yeah.
touching, anything like that. And I thought that was really cool. So how stressful was it um for the industry to start to think about doing in-person events during this time frame? Like, how'd that work out for people?
I think that the thing that makes this particular this time period so stressful is that it's not like we're shifting to virtual because we want to, or we're not doing in person because we want to. It's because like there are serious ramifications if things aren't handled properly. So I think for the planner, the stressful part is trying to make sure safety, that you are implementing safety measures for the event. I know and it's hard, because you can't make anyone you can't make anyone do anything. So you can set up a room to have everyone be 6 feet apart. But if someone wants to be 3 feet apart, that's what they're going to do. You can have signs everywhere that say you must wear your mask, or you can have hand sanitizing stations everywhere, and but people may not do what you want them to do. And I think that for me is the part that is the stressor, is that I can't control. Once I have people in my space, I can't control what they do. And so there's always like a fear that people could be, them not being safe, and there could be a spread from this and things like that. So as a planner, I think all you can do is provide all of the safety measures that we know we need. Provide the mask, provide hand sanitizer, provide rapid on-site test. Create a system for people to show their vaccine cards, if that's what you're saying. Have signs that encourage social distancing. Have floor stickers if you have like an exhibit hall, or if you have lunch lines, have floor stickers that are put 6 feet apart and encourage people to stand on them. Having signage that says, wear your mask, please sanitize. So I think as a planner, the all you can do is make sure you have all the measures in place and do your best to, help your attendees enforce them. I did an event in Texas during COVID, and we had the requirements to get into the event were that you had to either do a rapid on-site test, provide proof of a negative COVID test within 72 hours of arrival, or you had to show your vaccine card. All this was very clearly communicated prior to the event. And of course, when people get on site, there are people who don't want to do any of those things. So that's what I mean when you can have all these measures in place as a planner and dot all your I's and cross all your T's, and still have people be like, oh, you can't test me, or I'm not going to show you my card, and you can't do this. And that has been the most stressful part of me in all this is, trying to keep everybody safe and dealing with people who don't care.
That's a whole nother conversation. I'm sure we could have a total conversation about it. No, that's good to hear. And so I'm not going to take up a lot more of your time. So let's move into today, right? I'm sure you all probably thought you had it figured out for the most part until recently with the new variant and stuff that's coming out. I'm starting to, see emails come across about, certain events and conferences and such that are either getting postponed, like sporting events, things of that nature, getting postponed, canceled, or rescheduled. Right. And then so like, again, I know it's difficult for me to ask you this question and you answer it the way that you feel that works for you. But like, what's it look like in the future? Like, for event planning, like what should we expect? Like, what are y'all preparing for now, moving forward to be able to provide these events? Cause these are great experiences for us and information typically that we need to gather from these events. Right. And conferences and things like that, and ways that businesses thrive to operate. So they're definitely needed and essential. But I guess really my question is like what are you doing in your industry to be sustainable?
I think in 2020, I think we learned a lot of things, a lot of ways to, like I said, implement these in-person experiences virtually. And then when we made the transition back into virtual, implementing things like you said, like having the indicators of how comfortable people are with in-person interaction and having all the safety measures that I mentioned. So it's just, I think it's just a continuous learning curve. Now we're back at a place where it seems like the measures that we had kind of all had in place, even not even in the events industry, I'm just saying like as a whole, aren't really working at this moment with this new variant. So now we have to take a step back and then, not reinvent the wheel, but figure out how we're going to move forward again. So I think initially, at least for right now, what I'm seeing is at least my first quarter 2022 events are all shifting back to virtual or hybrid. All of my first quarter 2022s are back to virtual or hybrid. All my in-persons that were scheduled. Now I'm starting to see my Q2 ones have the conversation about switching to virtual or switching to hybrid. We don't know. That's the thing. No one knows. So it's hard. Right? It's hard to really think through, but everyone's top concern is obviously keeping their attendees, safe. And so I think we will definitely probably see a shift back to the virtual, at least for Q1, Q2. And then, who knows? We'll see what happens with this variant. And outside of that, one thing I forgot to mention is and this is probably something that a lot of people don't think about, outside of even like the physical social distancing and sanitation and things like that, contracts for the industry have changed a lot, because when these in-person events cancel, it affects, you cancel with the hotel, that obviously has a major impact on the hotel's revenue. You canceling like the in-person event, that cancels an AV job for an AV production company. That's canceling food and beverage, for the hotel. It's so many pieces of it. So that's one thing I forgot to mention is that one of the things that was a big thing in 2022 is creating guidelines that protect where everybody felt protected, and fair. Because for a hotel, everybody canceling, for now, you have to have clauses in your contract specific to COVID as it relates to cancellations. So just in all your vendor contracts, it's like, you got to have a clause. If in the event that we can't do this because of XYZ, what happens, and to try to be fair, because everyone loses out when those things happen. So it's like it's been a huge learning curve on all ends.
Well, it's good though. Well, it's like we mentioned, there's nothing great about COVID, right? And the pandemic, besides what you've been able to take from it, like learn from it. And so at this point, the good thing is that you've been through most of it, and you've used a lot of this technology, and you've used a lot of these different ways and forms of providing events and services and such. And so now it's more or less like, how can I pivot into different things and to be able to kind of take it and move it forward. And so that's one good thing that I've heard you talked about. And you mentioned safety a whole lot in this. And I know that that's paramount and like very important. And so it's good to hear that you're taking the experiences that you've gotten, throughout your entire career, but most specifically through this pandemic, and then you're putting all the pieces together to be able to continue to have sustainable events. So that was good to hear.
Yeah. And I think it'll just continue to get better. We started out when all the virtual events started out, everyone was trying to figure it out, like learning very quickly. And I think with all the new companies and new event platforms that have been developed, like I feel like we're just really figuring out how to produce really top of the line, engaging virtual events. So even if we take this step back, I think it's with all the advancements that we have made, the virtual experience will only continue to get better and continue to be more immersive and continue to be more engaging. So I don't think there's necessarily a downside at this point. Like I know clients will be disappointed because again, there are certain things you just cannot replicate about an in-person event, like the in-person experience and the people interaction. That just is what it is. But I would encourage everyone to not be too discouraged as we take this step back, for the greater good. And just know that, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, because
that's what I tell my clients all the time. We'll figure it out.
That's good to hear. That's kind of how you got your no mortgage insurance. We just figure
it out.
We figured it out. So this is awesome. So tell us, because I'm gonna let you go. Tell us almost let you go, but tell us how we can connect with you. Like so a couple things. How can we help you? Like what do you need? How can we help you? Number one, and number two, how can we connect with you?
Well, I mean, anyone looking for an event designer, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached at Britanny at aceeventproductions.com. And also, here on LinkedIn. And what was the other question?
So you answered them. So ask how we can help you. Like, what do you need? And then yeah, right. There you go. I mean, I'm asking, so you got to tell the world what you need. So you need clients, and if there's anyone looking for world-class event designer,
yes,
reach out to Britanny.
I'm also always looking for like new people to work with too, new AV companies to work with, new production companies to work with. Always looking to learn about new event platforms that are coming out. So, just always looking to make more connections in the industry.
And we'll post it in our comments. So you said Britanny at Ace Event Productions?
Yes.
Britanny at Ace Event Productions.
Yes, I will text it to you.
Yeah. So we're going to put that up in the comments here in a little bit. All right. So we're almost done here. We'll hit you with, we've been having a great conversation. We're talking longer than I told you. I apologize for, I know, keep the show on task and everything. So you have to forgive me. I tell us this is a purpose part. So everything's been purpose with you today. But towards the end, we do this question, two questions. You get one person, right? And you get one question. Who would it be and what would you ask?
My grandmother, my dad's mother. She passed away when I was 4, but I remember her so vividly. Like for me to have been that young, I remember her voice. I remember everything about her, the way she looked, her hair, her house. I remember all of it. But I was so young that obviously we didn't get to have like certain conversations. Like I just didn't know anything about her other than she was big grandma. So my question to her would just be like, I would just, who are you? Like, just tell me. I just want to know all about her, like just her life, her story, because I didn't get that from her when she was here.
That's a great question because you get it all. Like, tell me about you. Who are you?
Yeah,
And then
just tell
shut
me
up and listen,
who
right?
are you outside of big grandma? Like, tell me who you are.
That's a great question. Thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it. And so, Brittany, as you know, reason why we do this is so it'd be just a shame for me to have these connections and all these contacts and relationships, and not to be able to share them. And so we definitely appreciate your time today and spending it with us on Lending with Purpose. As I mentioned every week to anybody, if there's anything that I can do, we can do to help in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. Continue to stay as safe and as healthy as possible. We are still in a pandemic, but just, make good decisions and make wise choices. And just like I said, stay as safe and as healthy as possible. We will see everybody next week. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, Brittany. We appreciate your time. And
Thank
like I said, we'll
you.
see everybody next week at 2 p.m.